During the Holocaust, Hitler and the Third Reich systematically forcibly sterilized more than 410,000 German and Austrian citizens to prevent breeding of genetically or racially inferior, and implemented euthanasia laws known as Operation T4 that gave doctors the right to kill the mentally or physically disabled. Hitler and his henchmen devised death camps that housed mass gas chambers, enabling them to murder millions upon millions of people, primarily Jews. Hitler sought to cleanse the human race of all those he deemed inferior in an effort to create a master race, a super intelligent, tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordic type known as Aryan. Was all this the creation of a madman? Did Hitler alone devise this monstrous ideology? The answer is no. Hitler's entire Holocaust is completely based on the blueprint of the American Eugenics Society. The wealthiest members of American society funded the ideology that Hitler executed in Europe, and if the American Eugenics Society had their way, it would have happened in America too. In fact, through the manipulation of legislators, there were forcible sterilization laws in 27 states. The United States had in fact sterilized over 65,000 citizens for such reasons as blindness, deafness, mentally disabled, physically disabled, alcoholism, and criminal behavior. The blueprint for the social, genetic revolution and genocide of Germany. What is eugenics? Eugenics is the applied science or biosocial movement which advocates the use of practices aimed at improving the genetic composition of a population, usually referring to humans. In 1863, Sir Francis Galton, a cousin of Charles Darwin, theorized that if talented people married only other talented people, the result would be measurably better offspring. This is what he called eugenics. So how did the eugenics movement begin in the United States? As a result of post-war chaos, race conflicts, and the heavy flow of new immigrants, elitists, utopians, and so-called progressives fused their smoldering race fears and class bias with their desire to make a better world. They reinvented Galton's eugenics into a repressive and racial ideology. The intent: populate the earth with vastly more of their own socio-economic and biological kind and less or none of everyone else. They were planning to generate a genetic and social revolution. The desired species of the eugenics movement sought was populated not only by strong, talented people. They wanted tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordic types. In the process of the eugenicists intended to subtract emancipated Negroes, immigrant Asian laborers, Indians, Hispanics, East Europeans, Jews, poor people, the infirm, and really anyone classified outside the genetic lines drawn up by American raceologists. This ideology was cultivated in the United States and idolized by Adolf Hitler, the very races that the American eugenics movement intended to eradicate in the United States. Hitler immediately targeted the moment he came to power. Who were the primary supporters of the American eugenics movement? Alexander Graham Bell, Henry Ford, John Harvey Kellogg, J.P. Morgan Jr., and most importantly, John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie, to name a few. Let's begin with Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie funded a study by the American Breeders Association that decided on 18 possible solutions to carry out eugenicide. The most common and popular suggestion of eugenicide in America was public, locally operated gas chambers. In 1918, Dr. Popenoe, an Army venereal disease specialist during World War I, co-wrote a widely used textbook called Applied Eugenics, which argued that from a historical point of view, the first method which presents itself is execution. Its value in keeping up the standard of the race should never be underestimated. Adolf Hitler used this very study to fashion his death camps, complete with gas chambers to murder thousands per day. The exact numbers of deaths in the death camps are still not known. However, including the 6 million Jews, it is believed that Hitler and the Third Reich exterminated more than 15 million people of approximately 30 nationalities, Christians and homosexuals. Hitler referred to the textbook Applied Eugenics and the work of the American Breeders Association, funded by Andrew Carnegie, as his Bible. The American Eugenics movement and Hitler both knew that their respective societies would not readily accept these revolutionary ideas. To quietly further their shared ideology, mental institutions in the United States practiced passive euthanasia on their patients, denied medical treatment to infants born ill, and allowed them to die. Not one doctor was held accountable, despite the fact that no state in America had any euthanasia laws giving doctors this legal power. Adolf Hitler did in fact pass euthanasia laws allowing doctors to freely commit medical murder daily. This law was known as Operation T4 and was not made public, but the German people began to realize what was happening. Hitler stated that war would provide both a cover for killing and a pretext that hospital beds and personnel would be freed up for the war effort. The upheaval of war and the diminished value of human life during wartime would mute any opposition. This decree was dated September 1st, 1939, the day before he invaded Poland. John D. Rockefeller's involvement had even more sinister ramifications. John D. Rockefeller had donated over $400,000, equivalent to $4 million today, by 1926 to hundreds of German eugenicists. His funding continued until 1938, shortly before the war erupted. A special recipient of this funding was the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Anthropology, Heredity, and Eugenics of Berlin. American eugenicists craved twins to advance their research on heredity, and the institute was about to begin that research on an unprecedented level. The Rockefeller Foundation contributed $9,000 to the Institute for Research on Twins. The head of this institute was Ottmar Freiherr von Verschwer. His longtime assistant was Dr. Joseph Mengele. Verschwer obtained permission from SS Reichsführer Himmler to carry out research by Dr. Joseph Mengele at Auschwitz because it contained the most diverse racial groups of any camp. Dr. Mengele carried out sadistic and horrific acts of torture and murder. None of the experiments he carried out had any real scientific merit. Dr. Mengele was known as the Angel of Death. The American public was unaware of Hitler's Holocaust and its ties to the American Eugenics Society and its wealthy American supporters. However, President Roosevelt and the nation was aware that Jews were being persecuted, and they reacted by people boycotting German goods, holding rallies, and putting pressure on the federal government to act. Jewish community leaders worked with Switzerland to provide assistance to refugees, and the president waived visa regulations to make it easier for Jews to escape Europe. It wasn't until a report by Dr. Gerhard Reiner reached President Roosevelt until stronger action was taken. The president issued Executive Order 9417, creating the War Refugee Board. In 1945, the United States military led Allied forces in an invasion of Germany and liberated the death camps. The aftermath and reform. Allied attorneys, primarily American, tried over 200 Nazis for crimes against humanity at Nuremberg from 1945 through 1949. All were convicted, however, only 24 were hanged. In 1946, the Commission on Human Rights was founded at the United Nations. In 1948, the Commission drafted the Declaration of Human Rights, which was the first global expression of rights to which all human beings are entitled. The State of Israel was also founded in 1948, providing European Jews with a state of their own. The study and practice of eugenics in the U.S. had been abandoned, and many states repealed their sterilization laws. However, social revolutions and genocides are still happening. It happened in Vietnam, Somalia, Rwanda, and is still currently happening in the Sudan. Will the human race never learn from its mistakes? I believe our founding fathers had it right. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.